Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. So welcome to another episode, and with me today is one of Perth's real estate luminaries, Natalie Hoye from Nats from Red Fox. Yes. No, I was just looking at the camera went off over there, and I thought, oh my God, we've lost video already. But no, it's okay. So yeah, Nat's with Red Fox, and Red Fox is just an exciting little business, and she's kind of taking the world by storm over in Beaufort Street, Mount Lawley, all the suburbs surrounding. So tell me a little bit more about the suburbs, your service, and about your history, Nat.
Yeah, sure, Pete. I used to be a management consultant, a management and HR consultant before I got into property. Did that for a long while, had my own business. Property has always been my hobby, bit of a passion, something I was always interested in. We bought and sold a lot of homes. I get bored easily, and my bad joke is better houses than husbands. So, well, mind you, one could have cost me more than the other, but but it was about
Oh, David, are you listening?
So it was about 13 years ago, and we were selling for the upteenth time, and I was involved in the usual very in-depth conversation with my selling agents, and they said, oh, for goodness sake, Nat, you should just come and work for us. And I thought, you know what, why not? And so I did. And at first I thought I could juggle the two. I could still do my management consulting and work in real estate. I worked out really quickly that wasn't going to happen. So I gave up all my consulting jobs, threw myself into real estate and never looked back.
You certainly haven't looked back, because in recent times you've been awarded as, I think, a master salesperson.
Yeah, Grandmaster for the last 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. What does that mean?
That means we've sold either over $50 million worth of real estate or over 70 properties in the financial year. And
it's just you. Well, basically, it's just you. I know that you have assistants, a team with you, but it's not like you've got a troop of sales reps working underneath you.
Yeah, no, my PA doesn't list or sell, so that's me. So yeah,
that is as an ex-selling agent, almost reformed. 70 properties in a year is very good.
82 this year, and I think it was more than that the year before.
Wow, yeah. That is a huge effort. So I think that's a good way to say that you know your stuff.
Thank you. It's been nearly 13 years now. Yeah, 12 and a half.
And we first met at a course I was running on, I think it was...
when I was a newbie.
Yes. It was one of your first CPD courses. And, we've known each other ever since. It's been a really productive relationship.
It has.
So, Nat, the suburbs that you want to that you're working in and you operate in, they're the suburbs I wanted to talk about today, and I want to bracket out the rest of Perth just so that people don't get this impression that we're talking about the whole of Perth. So what are the suburbs that you're working in?
So essentially the suburbs surrounding and nearby Beaufort Street. So the core of those are Inglewood, Mount Lawley and Bedford. And then we would also sell the kind of neighbouring suburbs. So, Maylands, a bit of Baysy, sometimes a bit of Embleton, Dianella, Highgate. And as long as we can get there in 15 minutes, we're happy to look after it.
So let's pick those top 4 suburbs. So they were Mount Lawley.
So Mount Lawley, Inglewood, Bedford, and then probably the next one would be
Bayswater, rightio. Mm-hmm. Okay. What makes those suburbs special in your eyes?
Look, I think a lot of it is to do with proximity to the city. I think certainly it's to do with the quality and the variety of housing stock, but probably more importantly, it's lifestyle factors. You know, they all have really great amenities, social precincts, and you know, you move into those suburbs for the quality of lifestyle as much as the quality of homes.
So when I'm talking to people about where they should buy, I believe, and it's not a well researched opinion, but I've done a little bit of research. I believe there's an association between the livability of a suburb and capital growth.
Yeah.
And if so, Ipsos did some research, and they put about 16 or 17 factors into what makes a livable suburb. And things like streetscape, tree canopy.
Oh, yes.
And when you think about tree canopy, you think Mount Lawley, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And all of those suburbs, certainly the closer in bits, have got it. So Mount Lawley, lots of tree canopy. You know, it's an older established suburb. It goes back to, some, homes predate the 1900s. So, they've been around for a long time. Inglewood's the same. You get homes ranging, from the early 1900s, obviously right through to now, but you've got that established tree canopy.
It makes for a cooler suburb.
It does, definitely. And that's one of the things that, in some ways density challenges, because you've got, beautiful old established trees that you're losing and not replacing. But that tree canopy really does add to the feel of a street. Yeah.
What else, in your view, do those suburbs bring to the equation in terms of livability?
Yeah, so as I said before, social precincts. So you've got proximity to amenities. You've typically got cafes and restaurants. And
have you counted up the number of restaurants? And
oh God,
that's a question I notice.
I blog about them all the time, obviously.
You do,
but somebody this morning posted on one of the...
There would be hundreds, surely.
Yeah, and someone this morning posted on one of the community Facebook pages. They were looking for a particular, kind of style of restaurant to, send their friends to in Beaufort Street. And I was thinking, well, within, kind of 2 Ks of each other, there were 4 that really hit the mark. But then there's a plethora of other options, but they were looking for something that was a little bit upmarket, a little bit funky, kind of really great vibe. And there was just 4 that I could prattle off easily. So, that gives you an indication of, we've just got so many options around. I live in Inglewood. We're 100 metres off Beaufort Street. I love where we live. My house needs some work, but it doesn't faze me because I just, the amenity and the joy that I get from where I live just more than compensates for that.
These suburbs are very close to the CBD, which is another big factor in their favour.
Yeah, absolutely. You can hop on for example, Beaufort Street, the 950 bus. I think that's the most frequent bus service in Perth, every few minutes during peak hour to and from the city. You've got the train, you've got other really good transport networks. A lot of people work in town, though, more obviously now working from home since COVID struck, and I actually think that's a really good thing for local communities. That's a topic of a, whole other conversation, I think, but that proximity to the city is a real positive, particularly if you're looking, for an easy commute into work.
Sure. With proximity to the city often comes congestion, but what I observe is that people that live in a city are kind of happy to trade off a little bit of traffic, a little bit of congestion for that sort of access and walkability to things.
But you're talking about a little bit of congestion for 3 or 5 or 6 kilometres, not getting stuck in the freeway trying to, travel in from the outer burbs. It's a very different thing.
Yeah. And what about crime? So East Perth, which is one of those suburbs not far from there, is I think it's it's in the top 5 of crime per capita in Perth. Yet it's very, very popular. What's your thoughts on that?
Do you know, like from what I can see from the crime statistics when I occasionally glance at them, and it's not something that I kind of get caught up in, I think the stats for the suburbs that I sell in are relatively low and certainly haven't really changed. I think if there's crime, it's the petty stuff, like, pinching bikes and, all of that kind of stuff, because people have left them out or, someone's left something valuable in their car and, people are going down the streets at night shining their torches in. And of course they're going to smash a window and nick something if it's, your laptop sitting there, on the front seat. But there's certainly that seems to be, the kind of the most of it. But to be honest, whilst I'm a member of the, the local crime page, I don't pay it much attention.
So one of the factors that Ipsos had was for a livable suburb is could you feel safe walking around the suburb after dark?
Yeah.
I think most of these suburbs you can, yet like the crime stats in East Perth and locally here in Burswood, like Burswood's off the chart. And there you go, well, why is it that it actually feels safe at night to walk around?
Yeah.
And yet the crime stats are so high. And you start thinking, well, where does the crime actually come from? And locally we've got Burswood, the casino, which would be a hot spot for those petty crimes, your cars getting broken into in the car park, that sort of thing.
Yeah, look, my son will often walk home with his mates and sometimes by himself, which I'm like, at, very, early wee hours of the morning, from Northbridge, because, they can't get an Uber or the cost of the Uber is ridiculous. So, they'll kind of wander home from a club or something like that.
Plus young.
Yeah, that's it. They, and full of good, Pete. So, they're so they don't really worry about it. I mean, I walk very early in the morning, and that never kind of concerns me. I'm obviously, as a woman, always aware of my surroundings, it's not something that that I sort of worry about. I think a lot of the petty crime that happens is kind of 3-4 in the morning when most people are dead asleep. So
yeah. All right. So we've established that those 4 suburbs and by virtue of association, the surrounding suburbs are livable suburbs. They're in high demand.
Yeah, good school zones as well. So
yes, yeah, good school zones. And what about shopping?
We're blessed with we are now blessed with a plethora of supermarkets. Once upon a time, you had Coles in Inglewood, and that was it. Now there's an Aldi. Now there's a Woolies. You've got 2. You've got Good Grocer, which used to be the 2nd Avenue IGA in Mount Lawley. You've got Fresh Provisions, so another good gourmet grocer. They've got another IGA. Woolies has also opened up down on Stirling, at the end of Stirling Street and Highgate. So there's been a real kind of surge in supermarkets.
Basically, no one's going hungry.
No. And what's been really interesting, particularly in Inglewood, since Aldi and Woolies have opened, is that other businesses have had more confidence to come in as well now that you've got 2, very permanent tenants. Aldi own their site and Woolies is a tenant, but that's a bespoke build for them. And that's attracted other businesses to the strip. Yeah.
The barbecue question is always, and I'm sure you've had it within the last 3 days, Nat, how's the market?
Hot. Hot. In one word.
Yes. But is that why you're wearing a red dress?
Probably. Look, that said, there's not one market, Peter. As you know, there's multiple markets within markets. So it's houses for us in our areas. It's predominantly houses that are flying off the shelf. Our median days on market for the last 12 months, and in fact probably 2 years, are 7. So I essentially start.
That's for your stuff.
For me, that's for me personally. So we essentially start each week fresh. we pretty much sell everything we listed the week before, and then we bring a fresh batch of new property on. So it's been really fascinating to see how the market goes. So houses in particular, can't get enough of those. The multi-residential market, so units, apartments, townhouses, we're finally starting to see some growth there. I know REWA has said, the RP data, CoreLogic stats have come out and said that, prices are pretty much holding from 12 months ago. I think in the inner market where we are, that's changing, and we're seeing really good numbers, and just sort of tracking the results in groups, we're seeing prices increase, certainly since the start of the year. Land is the only thing that's flat, and we can thank the land grants for that, because within 6 weeks of the grants being announced, land had gone up 10-20%. So with build costs. Now that's kind of eased off. Build costs haven't. They're up anywhere between 30 and 100% depending upon who you speak to, and so that's impacted the demand for land. The prices for land have come off, though it seems to be holding relatively steady at the moment.
Yeah. You're certainly not the first agent to have said to me that units and apartments are starting to sell.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Who's buying them?
Mostly first home buyers. So mostly first home, it depends on the price point. So mostly first home buyers, it's interesting, we get a lot of single professional women in the inner north, certainly buying for themselves. That's been something, a trend I've kind of noticed over the last sort of 10 to 13 years is a real increase in single professional women as a buyer's market. But that would be, it would be predominantly first home buyers. There's a couple more investors around, but they're usually getting pipped at the post.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the home buyers are just saying, I want a roof over my head, I'm willing to pay the extra.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Tired of renting and realising there's an opportunity to get into the market now. Yeah.
Is there anything in your area, aside from land, and we might just come back to that, it fascinates me. Is there anything in your area that is, well, shall we say sale-proof or harder to sell?
Yeah, harder to sell. Look, this is another trend I've noticed, and it's one that really fascinates me, is that there seems to be, increasingly over the years, less and less appetite to renovate. Now, I've never bought someone else's renovation. There's just something in me. It's like I'm not going to pay for somebody else's reno. But that's what people want to do. So if you give me a beautifully renovated character home, that is going to fly off the market with multiple offers for a premium price. Something that needs work, the demand is not there. So there's far less competition and there's far less appetite.
Isn't that fascinating?
Well, for me, that's the opportunity. Like, I look at those properties and I'm going, that's what I would buy. And I say that when I do my property videos. I'm like, this is what I would buy. But there is not the appetite there. People would rather pay a premium for drive away, no more to pay. I pinched that from Ian Barnes. Drive away, no more to pay properties.
Thanks, Barnesy, if you're listening.
Yeah, rather than spend the time to potentially reap the reward themselves. And that makes no sense to me.
Just speculating here. Is this something that COVID has brought to us?
It was happening before COVID.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
It was happening before COVID.
I hadn't sensed it before COVID, but
okay. No, I've noticed it over the years, I think, and it.
Or is it? Sorry, Nat. Is it a shift in societal expectations?
Yeah,
let's stop putting off until. To have what we want until tomorrow. Let's get it today and enjoy it.
I think it's a whole level of that. I think, there's a level of we want the Instagram ready house. There's a level of we're time poor. There's a level of people don't have the expertise. They don't. They're not growing up with a paintbrush or hammering something, or So I think there's a change in skill sets for people as well. And there's also the fear of not being able to find a trade and how much it's going to cost and all of that.
That would be a factor.
Yeah, so that will come in. So it's a whole range of things.
So if you were talking to a buyer, as in the way I talk to buyers, would you be saying to them the opportunity is in the uncut gem?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've got one that we've got open this weekend in Bedford. Beautiful 30s character home. It's an elderly seller. She is just gorgeous. It's pink and blue and salmon and
Nice. Yeah.
all of those colours. Like I know a coat of white paint, new window treatments and modern furniture, and you can add 50 to 100 grand to it.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to, and there is the opportunity for a buyer.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just got to be willing, and that rings absolutely true for my experience, because I saw a home open that you had in. It was in, where was it? Inglewood.
It could have been, probably.
One on the corner that was.
Oh, the Grand Prom one? The
corner
of Beaufort and Grand Prom in Bedford?
No,
that was a corner.
Another one.
That's another one.
Anyway.
The one in Inglewood that needed a lot of work?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
corner of Crawford and Walter Road West.
Yes. And that one, there was only a very few people came through the home open.
Absolutely.
And 10 minutes later, a home that's all been renovated and is beautiful and, just so cute.
Yeah.
50-odd people through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that, that's it. We can get, we might get anywhere between 50 and 70 groups through something that is done, and, we would struggle to get 10 through something that needs work.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a big difference.
Yeah, it is significant. Yeah.
So there's the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's for people wanting to lift their capital, lift their equity. It's a bit of sweat equity.
What I will say is you need to be smart about it, because in my experience, people overestimate the cost of cosmetic renovations, and they completely underestimate the cost of actually doing a proper extension. So people have got no idea how much it costs to knock off walls and add rooms and alter roof lines and all of that stuff. That is really expensive. So the trick is finding something where the floor plan works.
Yes.
And it's just cosmetic.
Yeah. And that is a trick.
Yes.
That is a real skill, because it's really easy to walk through a home and go, we could knock out walls and we're going to... The moment that you say the word knock out...
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a coat of paint, most people could do it themselves.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah. Just watch Ronnie on the Block.
Watch Ronnie on the Block.
Well, he does follow Ronnie in Georgia, because Ronnie does all his reno tips. So,
right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I must do that.
There you go.
Now, I was going to... So, you were saying that really nice homes, they attract a crowd.
Yeah.
And we see this all the time. What's the most number of offers that you've written for a property?
21.
Oh, my God.
And that was in Karrinyup, actually. 21.
21.
Yeah.
Did you expect that would happen?
No, we didn't. We knew it would be popular, but it was big.
This is what I'm hearing a lot, Nat, that agents, they know that the market is hot. They they expect to have a lot of people through the home opens. They expect to have multiple offers, and every now and then it just shocks even the most hardened agent as that. Well, I didn't see that coming.
No.
No. And when you look back on it, would you say, well, I should have expected that, or you just continue to be, I just don't know why that happened?
I always say you never know what the response is going to be until you hit the market, and I hold true to that, because there's been property that I've put on that I've expected to be flooded, with offers with, and it's not just me, Alana, my PA, will say, oh my God, I expected we'd be like knocked over in the rush, and we haven't been. And then there's other stuff that will just blow you away in terms of the level of interest that you get. And you just don't know.
Every now and then, and it's very rare, you will see a property sit on the market.
Yeah.
What's going on?
there's a number of reasons for that. So occasionally you'll have something come up that is a bit unique and it's not going to have the big natural market. Like in my area, if I put a 4x2 character home with 2 living areas on a full block in the right school zone on the market, guaranteed get flooded with inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
If I put something on that is a little bespoke, it's a little bit unique, it's got a much smaller pool of buyers that it's going to attract, that might be something that will either sell straight away or take a little bit longer to move. So it can be about that, or it's overpriced. And that's either because the agent's promised too much or the seller's expectations are too high. So if you've got a property, like for example, we see them all the time, there's a ton of them around, it's usually the same agents that do them. You know, they've been on the market for 3 months, advertised as offers. Why? You know, there's no reason for that. You would know in the first 2 weeks what the market is saying about that property and, you know, where buyers are seeing value. So the only reason it's on the market 3 months later is either there's a fundamental problem with the property, which is probably not the case, or, you know, the agent's overpromised or the seller's expectations are too high and they're not prepared to meet the market. And the agent hasn't given them the feedback, or the agent's happy to continue to carry the stock for whatever reason.
Yeah. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No. No.
Yeah, you do see it every now and then where a seller is kind of in love with their own product.
Absolutely.
And they are emotionally attached to it even.
And you know, like that's actually part of the business I enjoy, you know, and we talk about working with head and heart, you know. So head for us is, you know, absolutely there needs to be the rational side about the business and the sales evidence and numbers and all of that kind of stuff. But essentially property is an emotional transaction. There's a financial side, but it's an emotional transaction. You know, these are people's homes. You know, sometimes people have lived in them for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Sometimes they built them, you know. So there can be a huge emotional investment. And even when you're selling to move to something better, you're letting go of something that your brain knows, and you know, and that's scary, you know, and the brain doesn't like dealing with something new. So it's a big change. So property is inherently, the purchase and sale of property is an emotional one.
Nat, in your business, you get to experience that emotional connection that a seller has, and sometimes it is a deep emotional connection. Like there's lots of things that have gone on in a home, and there's a real close connection. And then at some point, and I've seen it a number of times when I was selling, you can physically see it when a person lets go.
Yeah, you can.
And it's all like sometimes it's an emotional experience, and you go, wow. Yeah. I just saw something happen.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And sometimes it's helping the seller to acknowledge that and to let go. And there's been occasional times where I've kind of called it and said, you know, my sense is you don't want to let the property go, and you're struggling to let the property go. And maybe that's why we're stuck. And they'll go, yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah. And it's sometimes it might be as simple as taking the statue from the garden and moving it to the new home, or giving it to one of the kids, or it'll be something that will be a totem for that emotional connection. And if you address the emotional connection and then address the totem, people can move on.
Yeah, and that you know, it might sound a bit woo-woo, but I do believe, you know, people kind of form that connection to their property, and it's that process of helping them, you know, move that onto the next phase.
I think that you are so in touch with the emotional connection. I think this is one of the reasons why you've done so well.
Yeah, well, I see what I do as an act of service. And remember, I come from a consulting background, so I approach things a little bit differently. So you're there really to serve. You know, you're there to assist the seller to move on to the next stage of their life. You know, they've got fears, they've got concerns, they've got wants, they've got needs. You're there to address those. For me, every home is a new consulting project. You know, you can choose to do real estate by numbers, and a lot of agents do that, and they keep an emotional distance from it, and they treat it as something that's very transactional. I don't get any joy from that. That's not my thing. I really love the connection. I really love facilitating an outcome. You know, don't get me wrong. I love the nitty-gritty of the negotiation and getting a really great result. But the reason I love to get a really great result is I know every extra dollar I can put in my seller's pockets helps them with the next stage that they're going to. So a lot of our process is, you know, designed around that, really. Yeah.
Some years ago, I was doing some work for Rewa with their social media, and one of the presenters, I think he was probably their keynote speaker for the day. He comes off the stage, and as he's walking out the back, I grabbed him, and I said, "Would you mind just doing a quick piece to camera on what you've just presented?" And he said, "Yeah, fine, you know. Really busy, but yeah, okay, I'll do it." And I asked him, "So what's the key? If you left your audience with one script or dialogue, what would it be?" And he said, "Well, it would be, Nat, if I saw a property that suited your needs perfectly, do you want to know about it, or should I sell it to someone else?" And I went, "Wow, that script, that dialogue is as, like, I remember Tom Hopkins talking about this back in 1985. So it certainly wasn't anything creative." What's your thoughts on scripts and dialogues?
Okay. I'm sure I use them. It's not something I'd adhere to or subscribe to. I remember somebody saying to me once that, you know, who did a lot of script and dialogue training, and you know, that agent still works and they're very successful, and that was their thing, was script and dialogue training, and they would train, and probably still do train for 45 minutes every morning on scripts and dialogues. And he said, and at the moment we're practicing to sound authentic.
Practicing to sound
authentic.
That's gold.
And I'm like, in my head, thinking, just be authentic. Yeah. You know, like, be authentic. Because if you can be authentic and you can be present and you can ask questions and you can listen, that's half the job. Now, I might have, you know, a kind of semi format that I'll have, but I don't have the. I don't think I have the rehearsed pattern. Alana might tell you differently if she hears me on the phone all the time, but I don't go in with the intention of saying the same things or going, "Oh, and I need to say this and I need to say it in this kind of way." I go in with the intention of having a conversation and seeking to connect and seeking to understand.
I think the best thing that you can give to somebody is your presence.
Absolutely.
And if you can go in and genuinely listen to someone and genuinely understand their needs and be open to the possibility that you and they are not a good fit.
Yeah.
And be okay with letting someone else have the business.
Yeah.
There's an immense power and there's an immense fluidity in that it doesn't come across as with scripts and dialogues, they come across as harsh and uncaring, and unless, of course, you've practiced being authentic. Which, that's funny. All right.
But, now, you know, they have their place. And for people that are just starting out in the industry, it can give them some framework and confidence until they feel comfortable in their own skin. But my advice would be, try and be yourself. Yeah. And don't sell. You know, don't be there to sell. Be there, be of service.
Be of service, yes. Yeah. Yes. Be there for the other person, not for yourself. Yeah. And that's where that expression, absolutely, commission breath, comes from.
Yeah, and I think Tom Panos has a really, really good point about that. You know, the seller and the buyer need the deal more than you do. You know, and I think that's really important.
Case.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, you said before that you have a lot of homes where you have a lot of people
Yep.
coming through, and I know that I've seen that myself. What's your advice to buyers who they've missed out, they thought they were offering, enough, they've missed out? What's your advice to buyers to get them to be the number one offer?
Yeah. Look, I think the thing is all agents handle the process differently. So the first and really important thing to do is to talk to the agent. You really need to understand how the agent is going to manage the process. Are you
getting anything out of some of these agents is just about impossible, Nat.
Yeah, I know. Look,
it's not only impossible. It's all scripts and dialogues.
Yeah,
it's like you ask them, well, what are you guiding?
And I get it. And so there's a lot of mistrust that happens. I remember, I think, on 2 occasions I've had buyers say to me, but how do I know you're telling the truth? And I'm like, well, when you see the sale price reported. Typically buyers will miss out once with me and then they get it. They know that what they're being told is the truth. It's where things are at. But, every agent handles the process differently. So I think the first thing to do is question the agent in terms of how are they going to be managing the process. Is everybody only getting one shot? Will they have a chance to revise their offer? How's it going to be managed? When are offers going to be presented? So it's really important to understand the process and how that's going to be managed. I think the second thing is to make sure you have the conversation with the agent. Give them information about themselves. Obviously, you've got to be really organised with your finance. You're never going to buy anything if you're not organised. People want to put deals together that are going to stick together. So have the conversation with the agent to find out the process. Give the agent some background about your situation so that they understand it and know where you sit. And I think my third piece of advice is, the other things I kind of say to buyers are, when you're told to put forward your best and final offer, make sure it's genuinely your best and final offer. Not your wiggle room price, but, your genuine best and final. Because you want, if you don't get it, if you miss out, you want to be able to go hand on heart. It wasn't meant to be. The universe has got something better in mind for us. And the other thing that I always advise buyers is to mix up their number. Don't ever give me a multiple of 10,000 or 5,000, definitely not 100,000. Mix the number up a bit, because I've lost count of the number of times where, someone has won it. And we're talking mid-mil, properties in the mid-1 mils, and it might be $1,500 or $750 or $888 difference, So it's why often the sale prices on my properties are a little bit weird. So
that's interesting.
Because because I tell people to mix up the number. But I think you've got to speak to the agent, understand the process they're using, stay in touch with the agent, make sure you communicate your circumstances to them, genuine best and final, give it your genuine best shot and mix your number up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I usually say in my blogs too.
So, that's interesting. So, how does a buyer...
Oh, and sharpen your conditions if you can.
Okay. Which means?
If you're able to reduce the time for your finance period, do it. And if you can reduce the time for your settlement period, do it. And a lot of buyers do ask, and I think it's a smart question, has the seller got any particular time frames or settlement conditions or anything that they want to meet? If you can be flexible, because some sellers need to be flexible. They need a longer term for settlement. So, a 30-day cash unconditional might not suit them.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas a longer settlement period
if somebody's putting their property to the market, hoping to go on and buy something else,
that's correct.
A 30-day cash unconditional is actually not going to be great for them.
That's it. And a lot of people are selling at the moment with nothing to go to, so they're actually asking for 90-day settlement periods and getting them. So if you can so it's good to ask those questions about the seller so that you can position your offer to be competitive.
Yes. On the subject of conditions,
Yeah.
they are They are important. So I recently helped someone buy a property. It was a 1.1 million duplex block, and it was pre-market. It was listed. It was on the market, but it hadn't hit the portals. And the agent started asking me some questions around finance approval, because I told them that my client was pre-approved.
Yeah.
And they started having some, well, can you show me? Can you, like, they didn't want to sort of take my word for it.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we went back and revised the offer.
Yeah.
And one of the things was we changed the deposit from, I think it was 10 grand to 50 grand.
Yeah.
Because we just wanted to let the sellers know we are
serious
in this to play and to do the right thing by them.
Yeah.
And we handed over a copy of the finance pre-approval.
Yeah.
And the offer was just about instantly accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
we can't say enough about that, about conditions. And also timber pest and building. I think most of us have a pretty good idea when you look around at a home what's a substantial home and what is probably or possibly structurally defective.
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, even if it is structurally defective, is it a really, is it going to be a huge problem?
Yeah.
So, you might just think twice about putting a structural inspection clause on an offer if you look around and go, yeah, this is solid.
Yeah. Look, I think anything, I always say, so there you go, here's my dialogue. Sellers are looking for the easiest route to the result.
Yes.
They just want a clean deal. They want to know that when their home is under offer, it's essentially sold and that is going to progress through to settlement. So they will look for the easiest route to the result. If they've got a buyer that looks particularly difficult, and if I've got a buyer that's been a total pain in the ass to deal with, who's, shooting me contracts written by a lawyer with due diligence conditions and, all of that kind of stuff, and I know that they're going to be a nightmare, and then I've got a buyer that is just happy, like thrilled, wonderful, we can do finance in 14 days, don't need the building. If they don't need the building in the termite, wonderful, but if they do, but if it's just a standard one, they're realistic.
Make them standard clauses if you're going to use them.
Absolutely standard. They're realistic with their expectations. They've been organised. They've been a joy to deal with so far. I know which one I'm telling my seller to take.
Now, do you ever see a difference? Do you ever see a seller accepting a lesser offer?
Yes.
Because of they want more certainty?
Yes. Yeah, I literally had that 2 weeks ago. So I had.
And what sort of difference are we talking here?
That was 15 grand. So that's a lot. I was surprised. I probably would have gone for the higher finance offer, but they went for the lower cash with a settlement in 30 days. Yeah.
So don't pay the conditions off. Don't just put conditions on there. Be minimalist. Yeah, that's my advice too.
And that sometimes sellers will wait. I always say to buyers, the difference between cash and finance is 3 weeks. So don't think you can come in, really aggressively with cash offers.
Now, this has been a really good conversation. I've got a lot out of it, as I always do talking to you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
For being part of it. And we'll wrap it up there. So thanks for listening to the WA Property Q&A podcast. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.